First thing I wanted to do is welcome everyone. Thank you for participating. And I think one of the most important discussions that a lot of us are having, and then a lot of us aren't having inside of InfoSec, which is how do we maintain a long career, very healthy from both a physical perspective, a mental perspective, avoid stress and burnout. So I'm going to be your host today. My name is Rick McElroy, Principal Cybersecurity Strategist for VMware, but that doesn't matter. Today, I'm a member of the InfoSec community, facilitating a discussion around stress and burnout. A couple of the things that I wanted to start with today is just my perspective and why do I care and why am I talking about stress and burnout. I can honestly say that I've experienced stress and burnout multiple times in my career to varying degrees. One organization that I left, it actually took me, 3 or 4 months to shake a little bit of that burnout out and a whole lot of that stress to actually get back to a baseline for my next job. And so I actually saw a talk that Chris Nickerson did, Indy 303. We all love him at DerbyCon a few years back. Very honest and brave discussion around, a career in InfoSec, expectations, and all of that good stuff. And I really took that to heart. I think a lot of it resonated with me. And then I thought if Chris was a leader enough to stand up in front of a group of hackers and have this conversation, then I could participate as well. I've lost some friends along the way. I lost one pretty recently, a former coworker, somebody who worked for me. And so I'm really here to hopefully keep us all healthy and safe and moving forward together. But I'm going to start talking and introduce a couple of other hosts today as well. The first one, very, very happy and excited to bring in the mental health hackers and their CEO, Amanda Berlin. Amanda, welcome to today's conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Definitely. And then, my good peer, my friend, senior security strategist for VMware, Karen Worstell. I think if you've been following InfoSec for any amount of time, you've probably seen a lot of her work for women in cyber, for diversity, for mental health and well-being. And she has, I think, an amazing wealth of knowledge and has lived sort of this journey and come out the other side better. And so, Karen, welcome.
Thanks, Rick. It's so great to be back here again with you and Amanda. I'm really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I'm going to start with a question to each of you. First one to you, Amanda. What got you involved in mental health and promoting better mental health for the community?
So it really just my own struggles in life and talking to, more people in the InfoSec industry, realizing that a lot of people didn't realize that they weren't alone when they were struggling with any amount of different mental health issues, whether it's burnout or anything else. And it just kind of went from there. It went from, me just talking about it online and social media to giving talks to doing villages and then starting the nonprofit.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about that, right? So I know we talked a little bit about this when we were, on LinkedIn, sort of discussing it. But give me a little bit of the, origin history, and then what you guys are currently up to.
Yeah, so I mean, it all started about 3 years ago, 2018, I think, when I kind of wanted to reach more people than would show up to a talk. And I figured, what better way to do that than do a full village when people can come by and kind of find out stuff on their own time and not necessarily have it be a scheduled thing. So DerbyCon was the first one, and it was kind of just me and a handful of friends that said they would volunteer their time. And, we started our own little village and it kind of rolled from there. It went from us just, crowdfunding the first time and a handful of people, talking about their own struggles and what they do, for coping mechanisms and all this peer support over a couple days. And it kind of just blossomed, and now we do it, everywhere. we have over 100 different volunteers, and we give talks and write articles, and we do villages when conferences are in person. And we like giving everybody that's a volunteer just really has a passion for giving back to the InfoSec community. And, we never want anybody to struggle as much as we have. It's always good to put out, information on what has helped you, right? It may help, one people, a dozen people, hundreds, maybe nobody, right? But it's helped at least you. And that's why peer support works, because there's a variety of things that work for some and not for others. And it's one of the things that we do best is share information.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm a big believer in everybody needs an individual plan, right? It's just, can we, and I also think like having that true peer support is really, really helpful. I know certainly for me, I mean, that's the number one resource I rely on is, my friends network in InfoSec to, help keep me when I get, wrapped around an axle. So I really do. I appreciate all of the work that you're doing. I'm hoping I can, elevate the message. From a volunteer perspective, how can people get involved?
You can just email info@mentalhealthhackers.org, or you can send us a DM at Hackers Health. And yeah, we have a Slack space where we kind of coordinate our volunteers and give each other support. And anytime I need help, I usually ask in there, and there's a good amount of people that just love giving back, though. And anything from writing articles to giving interviews, doing stuff like this, right, where you just kind of get on and talk about mental health in cybersecurity space.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Karen, I know, I'm familiar with your superhero origin story in regards to mental health, but for the audience, like, and I know, hey, some of it you experienced, some of it friends and all of that stuff. But
Right.
yeah, talk a little bit about why you care so much and why is this a big deal?
Yeah. Well, a little bit more detail on some of that is that when I took a big sabbatical from my work at Russell Investments, and I chased a bucket list item, and that was to become a chaplain. There's a story behind that that had to do with caring for elders in our family for over a period of years. And one of the things I noticed was I knew there was a lot of distress in InfoSec. I mean, there's a lot of things we have to deal with where we're constantly trying to, make good things happen, but we're up against kind of some major obstacles, and it's very frustrating, and people get burned out as a result. And I saw this moral distress in cybersecurity. Then when I went and became a chaplain and I was serving at the VA, I realized that the moral distress that I was seeing among patients, families, and staff was very similar to what we saw in cybersecurity, and that there was a conversation that needed to be happening, and it needed to be happening in the hospitals. It really needed to be happening in cyber, and that's why I came back. So I left the VA and came back into cyber to start having these conversations about what we can do. What can we do for ourselves, and what can organizations and managers help do for us to help make our jobs more sustainable without all the distress.
Yeah,
Without the distress, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you broke that down. So let's drill into it. I'll start individually. Something that I think I try to focus on is two things. One, gratitude and anchoring myself in how lucky I am to be doing this job in the position that I'm in. And then I think two, just getting away from cyber. Like it was something I was horrible at for a long time in the career. It was kind of, all encompassing. I had education gaps that I had to close. I had peers who were really good at certain things. And so I really put a lot of pressure on myself to just work constantly. And all of that stuff added up over the years, right? And so I think, number one piece of advice I give for everyone is take a break and make yourself do that. Yeah. And so Karen, what's some advice that you have for individuals?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is to sit down and pay attention to what are the things that we really have within our sphere of influence that we truly care about, and to spend time on those things. Like, we can be involved in a lot of things where we're making a contribution to something, but we're really not in the driver's seat, and we're not in a position to control the outcome. And over time, that can really wear on you if you don't have something in your life that you care about deeply, that is purely, purely a personal goal, not tied to your job, and that you can, spend time on every week. You can show something that you did about that thing you care about so much, and that goes a long way towards, giving us a sense of, even if the job's not ideal for a period of time, we are still moving forward on goals that are important to us, and I think that's a huge benefit.
Perspective. Amanda, any advice for individuals?
I mean, echoing all of that, definitely walk away from the computer on a regular basis, not just like, okay, once a year I'm going to take a weekend off, or I think a lot of us have the unlimited vacation time, and everyone that does knows that that's a blessing and a curse, where you don't track what you take for vacation. And I did that for years, right? Because you have unlimited vacation, you think, oh, well, like this is great. Like I can take off whenever I want. And you get to the end of the year and you realize you've taken like 3 sick days, and maybe you've gone to a doctor's appointment or another appointment here and there, but you've not actually gotten away from the computer. One of the things that I have to do now, a couple times a year, is go camping or something where I don't even have the ability to check email or social media or anything like that. Like, I mean, just social media is its own like can of worms that I could talk about how toxic that can be for a while. But yeah, just getting away from technology. We're just like sucked in because it's our passion. And I mean, I do it too, right? You work nonstop because you enjoy it. You just enjoy helping people, and you get to the point where you realize that you've not actually taken any time for yourself away from technology. So I try and schedule, several weeks, not at once, but like a week here, a week there, just to go and get away. And I never thought I would be able to do it either. I was always like, oh, well, what if this doesn't get done? You come back to a mountain of work and all of this kind of stuff. But you know what? Everything, if it doesn't get done, it's not the end of the world. Just for your own health, you're going to be a better employee because of it.
Love that advice. And one of the things that we've talked about too, right, is like, how do we support our peers, right? It's oftentimes we're at conferences, or maybe we're out having a coffee or a couple of whiskeys, after the event, and we're sort of providing an ear for peers and some commiseration and all of that stuff. But one of the things that I think you've gone through, and I'm actually going to sign up and take the course, and I would highly recommend, at least based on what I've read, but I'm interested in your experience with it, Amanda, is really around, the National Council for Mental Well-Being's mental health first aid. So for those people in the audience that maybe haven't heard of that, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can't remember when I came upon it. I think it was when I was first, diving into the topic and just researching kind of what was out there. Because like psychology is a passion of mine anyways. I mean, I know I'm never going to go get a doctorate and be a psychologist because, I mean, why bother at this point in my career? Like, there's no real good return on investment. But I do really enjoy learning as much as I can about psychology and mental health and all of that stuff. And so I was looking for things like that, and I came across this mental health first aid, and it's actually something that started in Australia. I think it's maybe 6, 7 years ago now, and it is kind of just like first aid, where you go to a first aid class, you're going to learn how to do CPR and triage a wound and maybe get them to the ER as soon as possible and just like stop the trauma, right? Stop the bleeding. And that's kind of what mental health first aid is. Same concept. You're not going in to learn to become a psychologist or, diagnose someone's mental health condition. You're going to go in and learn some skills to see, okay, this person is obviously in crisis, or this person is definitely having a bad time, bad day, and what not to do to make it worse, first off, and kind of signs that you might see that person may need a little bit of extra help to get to a qualified professional.
I love that. And Karen, I know, interestingly enough, like you have a chaplain background as well. And so I know it's something that we do on a regular basis, like as a group of humans working together, is like try to support each other. But from a peer-to-peer perspective, right? And any, advice as maybe our friends are experiencing some of these issues?
Yeah, I think the number one thing I like to talk about with people is a skill that is being talked about now as the number one critical leadership skill moving into work of the future, and that's empathy. And it's not something that necessarily comes to all of us really naturally. We have to learn it and practice it. So don't feel bad if it's makes you nervous. But being able to sit with a person who, is having a bad day and resisting the temptation to say something that I call like a bypass, right? Like, wow, that really sucks. Tomorrow's going to be better, is a bypass, because it just sort of says, I'm glad I'm not you. I'm glad I'm not having this problem, and I really don't want to get into it. But if you sit down with your person and say, wow, this really sucks, I have no idea what to say, but I'm here. That kind of presence is really, it might be a little bit scary to do, but as we do more of it, it gets easier and easier. It shows empathy. It's stepping into the space of the person that you're with. And we know from the research that empathy drives connection between people. Sympathy drives disconnection. Thanks to Brene Brown for bringing that to our attention. And so we can focus on the one thing we can do in the workplace and in our personal lives every single day is to be present, for the people around us. And it goes a long way, believe me, a long way. People feel alone. Knowing you have somebody who's willing to be in the space with you is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be my suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. And not rushing to fix it, because, oftentimes, hey, we're
Right.
underqualified anyway, right?
Well, and the temptation is that we try to fix it. I'm guilty of that myself. What's driving us when we want to fix things is our own discomfort with the other person's discomfort. We want it to go away. We're going to try to find a fix. But what it does is it puts an imbalance in the relationship with the other person and moves us into trying to close off a situation that maybe we can or cannot close off. And then it also puts us in the imbalanced role of the helper. And you don't want to be the helper. You want to be the person who's walking alongside the other person in their own journey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's power. I think that's a powerful distinction, and definitely requires practice.
Practice, it does. It requires us getting over our own fear, because the number one thing that we think of as soon as we're seeing someone who could use our presence is, I don't want to say something wrong and make it worse. That's the first thing that happens. And then the second one is, what if they ask me to help? Or what if they ask me to be with them? What am I going to do now? Like there's all kinds of things that prevent us from stepping into that space. But the truth of it is, you're wired. You actually are wired. We are all wired as human beings for that human level of connection. And being able to just step into that space, you may discover how something, even if you're an introvert, how powerful that your sheer presence is in assisting and doing something very meaningful for another person.
Yeah, just showing up and being present. I love that. I love that.
Yep.
Because I know that's personally impacted me when I've had some struggles. Is like, sometimes there is no solve for it. It's just something that a human's going through and is going to need some help with, right? But I like what you said there, Karen. You're next to the person, right? You're walking with them, I think is the term that you used. I like
Right,
that a lot. I like that a
right,
lot.
right. Actually, we had just as a visual of that. There's a term that I used, and the metaphor for it, the term is spiritual accompaniment. You actually are spiritually accompanying another person, but the metaphor is as if I am a stake, like a vine for a vine, and the other person is a vine that's at risk of falling over. And if I can be with that person in such a way that in this moment I am the stake for them, I've staked myself to them, um, in a way of accompaniment, then that is, someday somebody else will be able to stake themselves to me when I'm having a hard time, and we can all do that for each other.
And that's a real
Yeah.
community, right? I know
Yes,
I get into
absolutely.
this argument with varying people inside the industry. Do we have a community? Do we have 1,500 communities? That's how you build it, right? Is individuals
Yep.
inside of that thing. I think truly standing for each other and taking care of each other. And, um, Amanda, on that topic, right? So I know the pandemic has disrupted all kinds of things, including, your organization's ability to have some villages and actually, get out amongst the people. How has that been, doing stuff over Zoom?
Oh, not as good as I would hope. Especially in the beginning. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows, whether you work from home or not, you know, you got to a point where, all right, everybody's inside now and we're missing the human connection. And all right, let's just pile on as many Zoom
Yeah.
or FaceTime as humanly possible. And we were up to like several a day, and on the weekends and on the nights. And after 2 weeks of that, I know I was done. Like I was just worn out from being on camera all the time.
Yes.
And I mean, a lot of the conferences did virtual options as opposed to not having a conference. And I know a lot of people got stuff out of it. I personally did not. Um, and we had a really rough time doing what we like to do, um, in that virtual space because, the whole idea behind our villages is you get to decompress, right? You get to get out of the hallways or the big crowded rooms and all the noise and the commotion, and you can sit quietly and color and just like maybe have, a couple quiet conversations, and you just can't do that remotely. Like
Yeah.
the closest thing that comes to that is just like having meaningful calls one on one or three people at once, just having meaningful conversations with a few people. And I think some people did that, but that's just not something that you can transfer well to an online conference. So we started trying to do other things that weren't conference based. Like we have one coming up in November. That's our second Hackers Who Paint. So it's just has absolutely nothing to do with InfoSec. It's just painting, whether you're good or not, whether you've ever done it before or not. It's just somebody in the community wanted to lead a painting session. So you're like, all right, that's what we're doing.
I like that idea though.
Yeah, so it just kind of got us just out of the mindset that everything has to be about tech and everything has to be like you on camera because it was just tiring.
Yes, it is. It is. I am personally experiencing that for sure.
Yeah,
For sure, for sure.
because that's a different kind of burnout then.
Yeah, it's just the camera's constantly on, and yeah, yeah. And then I've read some studies too that talk about Zoom fatigue, and it's not good to see your own face that often. It's just not good for
No.
humans, and I agree with that totally.
Yeah, that's why I like this. Like I don't have to be on camera.
Yeah, this is perfect. This is perfect. Hey, so we got about 5 6 minutes left, and so for each of you, resources, links, any recommendations for the audience. We'll start with Amanda on that one.
So it's not greatly formatted because I mean I'm our web dev, and I mean, that's
We
not what I
forgive you,
do.
Amanda. We forgive you.
Yeah, so thank you. So, but we have a resources page on mentalhealthhackers.org that has a handful of stuff. One of the ones I highly recommend, whether you get it from our site or not, we don't have any of the like paid click through things because even if I wanted to do that, I have no idea how. So it's the mental health first aid. So Google that. It is a great program. Most of the time it's free. Other places it's like $20. Great 8-hour program that's offered nationwide and in the UK and Canada, I think. And then NAMI.org is another one. The National Alliance of Mental Illness, I think is what it stands for. Also super, super good resource. They have a lot of information on like if you're a manager and working with people that have mental health issues or dealing with it yourself or as a family or friends or whatever. They have a whole lot of really, really good information on their website.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm committing. I'm going to say it right on this thing. Yeah, by the end of November, I'm going to go get my first aid training, and hopefully, other people in the audience will commit to that. It's 8 hours, and I think it's pretty cool. It's 8 hours. We don't have to spend doing CPEs for our CISPs and all the other certs that we have.
Right. Yeah. I
So
mean,
that's nice.
There were 2 people out of the entire class that I took that were not nurses.
Wow.
It was just me and somebody going into some kind of police job, and he realized that like they don't get enough mental health training. So like kudos to that guy. But yeah, it was just me and him. Everybody else was a nurse getting CPs.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being a trailblazer, and really like thanks for elevating to the point where now I think as a community, sweet, we can rally behind a couple of good known resources and get some other folks who can just provide some better peer support out there.
Right.
Hey, Karen, links, resources.
Sure. Well, I'm trying to just make sure that this link works because I haven't looked at it in a long time. But I wrote a guide for people who were concerned about burnout, and it's a burnout prevention guide. And there's it's free if you want to go to it's at the URL beanally.today. So it's not something we use for marketing. It's just go get a download. You do have to put in your first name, I think, and email, but we're not selling anything to anybody, but you can get a guide there, and I think it'll be helpful. I've gotten some really good feedback from people who've been through that. So that's something I can hand out that you can take a look at right now is what are the key contributors to burnout for you, and what kinds of things can you do about it? And the other thing, I guess, I would refer them to our blog on the VMware site. We have a really good set of materials out there on burnout prevention.
Yeah, and I think follow us follow Amanda, follow Karen, follow myself on all of the social formats. It's going to be a continuing conversation. We'll continue to, elevate events that are occurring out there, resources and links. And as we're wrapping this up, I just wanted to say to everyone who participated today, who came on, who spent any amount of time with us, it is truly important. I believe no one's going to come fix us but us. It's up to this group and, all of us inside of the InfoSec community, really standing up for each other, taking care of each other, and hopefully keeping all of us together because, it's a long road. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I would like all of us to make it to whatever we decide the finish line is on that. And so with that, I think we're going to end our conversation today. But Amanda, Karen, thank you so much for sharing your time, talent, and wisdom. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for making this possible.
Yeah. Absolutely. And thank you again, everyone. We'll see you next time.